morning and welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. Great to have you along this morning.
Discernment is on the air.
I'm rushing around like a madman.
For years, Greg. Thanks for all you do and keeping us informed.
You know, I do this every day. You think I could get it down by now. But no, every day. It's a race.
Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser. Americans play to win.
Okay, here we go.
This is the Greg Belfrage.
Good morning, my friend. The marketplace of ideas is open. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. Monday, March 31st. Really great to have you along this morning. So the president is saying he's not joking about running for a third term. And there's a loophole. There are methods. One of the ways in which he's saying he could do this would be, okay, you have J.D. Vance run for president. Donald Trump runs as his vice presidential candidate. J.D. Vance wins and he resigns. And Trump becomes the president. That would be one method, Trump said. And this is a big story. I think just about every outlet that I went to this morning was reporting on this story. And the president said he's not joking. He was very serious. He said he's not joking about serving a third term in the White House and that he believes there's a way to make it happen. And as I mentioned, one would be having Vance run for president with Trump as his vice presidential. Then Vance would resign. Trump would take the job. But he said there are other ways too. But he didn't say what those were. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. 605-336-1320. Or excuse me, we'll talk about it later this morning. Sorry. Getting ahead of myself here. We'll do this coming up after 7 this morning. We'll get your thoughts on it. You can drop me an email this morning at greg.belfrage@kelo.com is my email address. greg.belfrage@kelo.com. And so they're having conversations about this. And the president said, I basically tell them we have a long way to go, It's very early in the administration. I'm focused on the current, he said. And he said he's interested in serving as president until 2033 because I like working. And he said, I'm not joking. He said, this was an interview of Kristen Welker on Meet the Press. And the president said, I'm not joking. But I'm not, he said, it's far too early to think about it. Well, of course, as he's out there and talking about it, how do you and I not think about it? So we'll talk about that in more detail coming up this morning after 7. Trump has done it a number of times, talked about a third term. He's been doing this for a while. And I thought he was just trolling, Democrats as he was doing this. Now he's saying, no, I'm serious. There are ways to do this. So I asked you the question this morning on Facebook. I'm curious how you would feel about it. You can share your comments with me on Facebook. And I love having you there, by the way. Thanks to all of you who follow me on Facebook. So share your comments there. Facebook's been a little bit off lately, and I don't know, in terms of folks responding, number of comments, so on. But I do love hearing from you. So a lot of this going through, FDR was the only American president elected to more than 2 terms. He died partway through his 4th term, and it was after that Congress then changed the law so the president could only serve 2 terms. And I've always wondered about that. Wouldn't it make more sense to say 2 consecutive terms? No president can serve more than 2 consecutive terms, meaning then you're away, and could you come back and run again? I have always thought that made a degree of sense. You know, it's the way we approach. I think approach it on the state and local level. Oftentimes, it's okay. You can't have more than 2 consecutive terms. You step away then for a period, generally 4 years, 6 years, whatever it may be. You step away then, and you could return and come back. So we'll talk about that this morning. Also, this morning, the president saying yesterday is very angry and he's pissed off at Vladimir Putin over Putin's remarks last week suggesting the removal of Vladimir Zelensky as the president of Ukraine. And so during this interview with NBC News yesterday, the president threatened a 25% tariff on Russian oil if a ceasefire deal can't be reached. And the president said, if Russia and I are unable to make a deal on stopping the bloodshed in Ukraine, and if I think it was Russia's fault, which it might not be, but if I think it was Russia's fault, I'm going to put secondary tariffs on oil, on all oil coming out of Russia, he said. That would be if you buy oil from Russia, you can't do business in the United States. There will be a 25% tariff on all oil, a 25 to 50% tariff on all oil, he said. Wow. So Putin on Friday called for presidential election in Ukraine. And then he's saying after then a presidential election in Ukraine, then they could begin negotiations on a peace agreement, obviously stolen, which would put this off then by several years, for quite a period of time before you could have an election then. And Putin said, we could, of course, discuss with the United States, even with European countries, and of course with our partners and friends under the auspices of the UN, the possibility of establishing a transitional administration in Ukraine. And the president saying he knows Putin is angry, but then he said anger dissipates quickly if he does the right thing. And the president had done an interview with Greg Kelly of Newsmax last week, and he was under the impression that Russia was dragging their feet. And he said that some additional pressure needed to be brought against them. So this was in a telephone interview the president did with NBC News, saying he's considering these secondary tariffs then between 25 and 50% on anybody who buys Russian oil. He said, if Russia and I are unable to make a deal on stopping the bloodshed in Ukraine, and I think it was Russia's fault, I'm going to put these secondary tariffs in place. He said those who buy oil from Russia can't do business in the United States. So some pretty tough talk coming from President Trump reacting to Vladimir Putin. Elon Musk is also in the news this morning. Elon Musk handed out $1 million checks to 2 Wisconsin voters, and there were questions as to whether, the court should stop this, and essentially the courts decided they didn't want to get involved. Because everybody freaks out. Elon Musk is giving giving away. And what Elon Musk is saying, you know why he does this, right? I mean, you know why he's giving $1 million to these voters, to get the legacy media to cover what's going on. He says, I want to get the media to cover what's happening in these elections, and therefore I give away $1 million, and everybody goes nuts and brings all kinds of attention to it. And that's exactly what you see. And then Elon Musk, of course, makes good on his promise. He donned a cheese hat during his time in Wisconsin to rally for Brad Schimmel. He's a conservative who is running for a Wisconsin Supreme Court seat. And Elon Musk said, I think this will be important for the future of civilization. It's that significant, he said. So Elon Musk handing out $1 million checks to 2 Wisconsin voters. The court had refused to hear a lawsuit from the state's attorney general over the cash being paid. So the checks went to 2 Wisconsin residents who have both voted for and donated to GOP campaigns. They have a history of supporting President Trump. Musk said that only spokesmen for an online petition against activist judges would be eligible for the $1 million handouts, and he stood by his word, bringing a lot of attention to the race. And you've got liberals who, it's amazing, liberals, when the left is giving money to their causes, they never have any concern. But when you have, Elon Musk giving, paying voters, suddenly they're up in arms. He's trying to influence the court. So it's pretty amazing. So Wisconsin Attorney General, the Wisconsin Attorney General was the one who had brought the lawsuit, and they weren't able to do it. So Elon Musk handing out $1 million checks. That also was a huge story this morning. There is. Excuse me, I didn't have things as well sorted as I'd hoped here this morning. Oh, okay. Also, among other big stories, you had protesters gathering at Tesla dealerships over the weekend. The Tesla takedown protests targeting Elon Musk were held at 277 Tesla showrooms across the country on Saturday. And then there were smaller turnouts that cropped up in European cities, which is just absolutely crazy. At least to me. Over in Europe, they're doing this. So fearful people are of what Elon Musk is, I think, representing. So the Tesla takedown events have been... you've had a few who have resorted to setting Tesla vehicles on fire. We talked about that at length last week. And Elon Musk reacting to this, he said, there are times when there are rocky moments, but when there is stormy weather, what I'm here to tell you is that the future is incredibly bright and exciting. Elon Musk says. So Fox News has a piece this morning that there's some hypocrisy going on among Democrats because there are a number of Democrats that are still investing in Tesla. Publicly, they're out, being very critical of Elon Musk, very critical of Tesla. and all of these things. So publicly, they're criticizing. Privately, they're investing in Tesla. And FoxNews.com has that story this morning. Some Democrats still investing in the company. And then they talk about the recent attacks. And we've covered those pretty heavily. I think a Tesla dealership in Las Vegas was firebombed. You had a man who rammed a four-wheeler into multiple Teslas in Texarkana. Did you see that? Just ramming this, it was on a four-wheeler, and ramming it into, just repeatedly into the side of Teslas. It's just wild. And it goes on and on. So this is Fox News reporting. Democrats have largely ignored the attacks, continue to hit Musk with personal attacks. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying he's sympathetic to Nazis, so on. All of this kind of stuff. So and then they get into details about how one Democratic representative from California went on Forbes Breaking News to slam Musk and President Trump. He slammed Musk personally, saying he basically bought himself the presidency of the United States. I have no doubt he is the one calling the shots. I don't believe that for a moment. Then days later, he purchased between $1,000 and $15,000 worth of Tesla stock. So publicly, he's out there criticizing Elon Musk, criticizing Tesla, and then the next thing he does, he turns right around and goes and buys Tesla stock. Wow. Democrat from California. Other big stories this morning, there were several alumni from Columbia University participated in a protest Saturday that included tearing up their diplomas. They're upset with Columbia. They feel that Columbia had decided to comply with demands from the Trump administration after the federal government tried to stop the $400 million in funding over concerns about anti-Semitism on campus. And so over the weekend, you had people ripping up their diplomas. Other stories this morning, Utah has become the first state to prohibit pride flags from being displayed in public schools and on government property after the governor of Utah allowed a bill restricting those flags. What he did was he allowed it to become law without his signature or his veto. So it will become law because there were votes there to override the veto. So had he vetoed it, lawmakers in Utah would have overridden that anyway. So he's explained his decision, but now it becomes law. So Utah banning pride flags in all government buildings. Also at the Post-Millennial this morning, this is a law professor at New York University. They've written an opinion, he and a law student have written an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal defending the president's view on birthright citizenship. And they're pushing back against the interpretation that the 14th Amendment grants automatic citizenship to children born in the U.S. Even if their parents are in the country illegally, they're pushing back against that and making a legal case that, in fact, that's That's not the case, which is why I think it's one of the reasons why the U.S. Supreme Court should rule on that. Also, the White House will remove a magnolia tree that was planted nearly 200 years ago with seeds that are said to have been brought from former President Andrew Jackson's home in Tennessee. And the president announced this yesterday, that he had consulted with the executive resident staff and the National Park Service, and the administration has decided to replace the tree because it poses a safety hazard. And the president saying the bad news is that everything must come to an end, and this tree is in terrible condition, a very dangerous safety hazard at the White House entrance, no less, and must now be removed. He said the good news is that his administration is making tremendous enhancements to the White House. And the president said the process would take place this week, will be replaced by another very beautiful tree. And the president saying they will preserve the wood of this magnolia tree because it's historic. And so the historic wood may be used for other high and noble purposes, the president said. So the tree was originally planted with seeds from a tree at the Hermitage, which is Andrew Jackson's home in Tennessee. He did it to honor his late wife, who had died just months before he took office. So the president saying that tree is going to have to be replaced with another. And that's a look at the big stories this morning. Thanks for starting your day with the Greg Belfrage Show. Mostly clear in 31. This hour brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
Hello, News Talk 1320, 107.9.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires, the give you more tire and automotive store.
Sometimes in the morning, I sit in my dining room at Washington Crossing. The sun is low, so it still has that red gold feeling as it streams in and warms my face. My coffee tastes especially good. If it's winter, the warm floor toasts my feet while I read the morning paper. This is exactly how I thought it would be. Find out how to join me at WashingtonCrossingRC.com and be blessed.
Looking for top quality trucks and equipment without the hassle? Transource Truck and Equipment has you covered. As a family-owned company, Transource is committed to providing superior service for all brands. They offer affordable leasing and financing options tailored to your needs. Plus, their dedicated team ensures exceptional service and parts to keep your equipment running smoothly. Get the equipment and trucks you need without the stress. Visit TransourceUSA.com. That's TransourceUSA.com. Your Volvo, CE, and Max sales dealer. Transource Truck and Equipment.
Emergencies strike at any time without warning. When they do, food disappears fast. That's why prepared Americans trust My Patriot Supply, the leader in long-term emergency food storage to protect their families. For a limited time, order their best-selling 4-week emergency food supply and get 4 free 72-hour food kits. That's 12 extra days of food at no extra cost. That's nearly 2 weeks of extra food, free to keep your family secure. Plus, free shipping. Order by 3 p.m. for same-day shipping. All kits deliver 2,000 calories per day of easy-to-prepare meals with a shelf life up to 25 years. These kits that have been rated 4.8 out of 5 stars by tens of thousands of folks like you. When the next crisis hits, you'll be ready. Stock up now at MyPatriotSupply.com before this deal disappears. Go to extra food kits.
Fox News coming up fast. And then Joe Bowman is in the Kello.com News Center. We'll run down trending stories for you here in minutes. You're listening to the Greg Belfrage Show on Kello.
Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. President Trump calls Wednesday Liberation Day, April 2nd, when his reciprocal tariffs take effect on imports from countries that charge more for American imports.
The tariffs will be far more generous than those countries were to us, meaning they will be kinder than those countries were to the United States of America over the decades.
He also tells reporters he doesn't want to talk about exploring ways to serve a third term right now, something he earlier said he was not joking about. Elon Musk in Green Bay, Wisconsin awards $1 million checks to two voters that are rallying for a conservative Supreme Court candidate. There's an election tomorrow.
Just if the people that voted for President Trump simply vote on Tuesday, we will win. That's actually all it takes. Just vote. Boom, done. Victory.
The election will decide if the court has more judges considered conservative or liberal. America's listening to Fox News.
Kello News Time, 6:31. I'm Joe Bowman in the Kello.com News Center. A Harrisburg woman died in a two-vehicle crash Friday afternoon, approximately 6 miles north of Canton. Authorities say an SUV heading north entered the intersection of 480th and 276th and collided with a car heading west. The impact sent both vehicles into a ditch where the SUV rolled onto the driver's side. A passenger in the SUV was ejected during the crash and passed away from her injuries. It's unknown if she was wearing her seatbelt. The two drivers survived with sustained injuries. Crash is still being investigated. Families, Congress, law enforcement officials, tribal leaders, they're all looking for a solution to the fentanyl problem. Congressman Dusty Johnson assembled a roundtable to brainstorm on possible solutions. He quoted a former Drug Enforcement Administration head in pointing out one of the main contributors.
Everybody thinks we have a fentanyl problem in this country, and I suppose we do. But what we really have is a China problem. Xi Jinping could turn off the flow of precursor chemicals overnight. He chooses not.
The congressman says he's working on legislative proposals to pressure China into cutting the flow of fentanyl to the U.S. Nationwide, the number of fentanyl-related deaths was down by 24% last year, but they increased by almost 50% in South Dakota. The South Dakota legislature's veto session begins today. Lawmakers will consider a potential override of the governor's veto of House Bill 1169 on constitutional amendment petitions. It's the only measure up for override this session. 14-year-old Emmanuel Gemechis will represent South Dakota in the 2025 Scripps National Spelling Bee in Washington. The eighth grader from George S. Mickelson Middle School in Brookings outspelled 27 other elementary and middle schoolers at the state spelling bee in Mitchell on Saturday. And the winning word, meringue. And in sports, the Minnesota Twins were swept by the Cardinals following a loss in the series finale yesterday, 9-2. From the Kello.com News Center, I'm Joe Bowman.
The news never stops. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
Weather brought to you by Intech Cleaning and Restoration. If you need it clean, call the Intech team. IntechClean.com.
Lows were high today near 46 in the Sioux Falls area. Mostly cloudy, north winds 5 to 10. Chances of rain blended with some snow here tonight. Lows in the low 30s. Southeast winds will pick up. And then tomorrow, change over back to rain. High temperature 44. More rain chances as we get into Wednesday with a high in the mid 40s. From the Storm Center at Kettleland TV, I'm meteorologist Brian Karstens.
The Sioux Empire's most talked about talk shows are right here. Kello News Talk 1320, 107.9, and Kello.com.
It's a worrisome Monday for millions of former 23andMe customers who gave all their genetic information to the now bankrupt DNA testing company. If you did, you have many reasons to be alarmed. Kim Commando here for Fast Growing Trees. Get an additional 15% off your first order when you use promo code KIM. Spring's here. Visit fastgrowingtrees.com, promo code KIM. If 23andMe has your DNA, you have a serious problem. You see, when the company filed for bankruptcy last week, its website went offline. Now it seems to come and go. The DNA of millions is now an asset of the bankrupt company. The courts can sell all that data to, well, anyone. So why the concern? We live in dangerous times. Anti-Semitism and racism are part of our lives. 23andMe knows your ethnic background. They know your address. They know your relatives. And the risk of this highly sensitive information falling into the wrong hands is astronomical. Start your morning with my free newsletter. Sign up at getkim.com. Did you know that Fast Growing Trees is America's largest online nursery? Yup, over 6,000 varieties of indoor and outdoor plants, plus more than 2 million happy customers. Whether you're after fruit trees, evergreens, houseplants, or something unique, they've got it all. No matter what your yard looks like or what your dreaming could be, Fast Growing Trees has you covered. I ordered an avocado tree for my backyard, and it's perfect. No green thumb, no problem. On top of their Alive and Thrive guarantee, they offer free plant consultation forever. Save 90% on landscaping costs when you DIY and get plants delivered directly from fastgrowingtrees.com right now. Save up to 50% on select plants. And as a Kim Commander listener, you get an additional 15% off your first purchase when you use code Kim at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using code Kim. That's fastgrowingtrees.com for an additional 15% off using the code Kim.
The Kim Commando Show, live Saturday mornings at 9. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires, with 2 locations to make sure you have the proper traction this winter.
Bring charm from the outdoors into your home with Renewal by Andersen Picture and Combination Windows. Optimizing a beautiful view and light in the bedroom, kitchen, or living room from ABC Seamless of Sioux Falls. Call 605-646-2667 today.
ABC Seamless. It's tax season. By now, we're all a bit tired of numbers, but here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much money in refunds the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now, here's a good number, $100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity's stolen, they'll fix it guaranteed. Save up to 40% in your first year with promo code CLAY. Visit LifeLock.com. That's LifeLock.com, promo code CLAY. Terms apply.
Progressive presents Employee of the Month. Small Business Edition. Today's recipient from Lucky Larry's Landscaping, Larry. Larry saved his business money with a quick commercial auto quote from Progressive. Does it help? He's his own marketing manager, accountant, executive.
Morning to you too, Robert.
Technically, yes, but saving really.
Appreciate it, my friend.
So, Larry, give Larry a round of applause. Be your own Larry. See if you could save in as little as 7 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates.
I'm home and I love it. I'm home where I belong. I'm home and I love it. I'm home where I belong.
It's always nice to come home. But these days, many Americans are at risk of foreclosure and losing their homes. Fortunately, help is available. Making Home Affordable is a free program from the U.S. government that has already helped over 1 million struggling homeowners, and we want to help you.
I'm home, and I love it. I'm home.
Find out now what your options are. Go to makinghomeaffordable.gov or call 1-888.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for those of you who are here. I know it's a small number of folks, but thank you very much. I appreciate it. Hope you had a great weekend. I really did. It was a very, really restful weekend. I actually did some stuff yesterday, so I'm like, look at me being productive. That's not usually the case.
107.9.
.639, mostly clear, and 31. Good morning and welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. It's great to have you along this morning. This hour of the Greg Belfrage Show brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
What's trending now?
Add them on Facebook.
Let the tweeting begin. The hashtag does that. News and views from Belf's News Gallery.
Well, the president over the weekend saying there are methods, if not plans, doesn't have plans, but he's saying there are methods that he could get a third term in the White House. So this was an interview that aired yesterday on NBC, and the president asked about trying to stay in office beyond his second presidency. This is a question that has come up a number of times, and the president, sometimes previously he said he was just joking, and this time he's saying he's not joking. He said there are methods which you could do it, he said. There are not plans, there are methods. Do you understand the difference between what he's saying here? Not that I'm planning to do it, but yes, there are ways to do it. Obviously, there are people, and the president talked about this, that there are folks in his administration who are talking to him about this, and he's like, it's too early to discuss this. We need to focus on first things first, the president's saying. But he said there are methods which you could do it, as you know. And one way, if you're scoffing at that, one way would be, because initially I thought, okay, now what are the methods? And J.D. Vance could run for president, Donald Trump as his running mate, and then were J.D. Vance to win, he would just simply resign and boom, Donald Trump becomes president. That would be one way to do it. And we'll talk about this in more detail. I'm really curious to get your thoughts on it this morning. So we'll open up the phone lines this morning after 7. If you want to drop me an email, please do so. greg.belfrage@kelo.com is my email address. Also, there was a 7.7 magnitude earthquake in Myanmar, and the death toll there has risen to nearly 1,700 people. So the earthquake and its aftershock have left, again, nearly 1,700 people dead. There are also about 3,400 injured, over 300 missing as of yesterday. So the quake, which is one of Myanmar's strongest in the last century, it hit on Friday, and you had, aftershocks and so on, and a number of people dead and missing. Also, the president, during this NBC News interview we were just talking about, the president saying he's very angry and pissed off with Russian President Vladimir Putin. This is after Putin criticized the credibility of Vladimir Zelensky's leadership. And the president said the comments were not going in the right direction. And it was reported in Europe that Putin on Friday called for a transitional government to be put in place in Ukraine, which then could effectively push out Zelensky. And the president yesterday saying, if Russia and I are unable to make a deal on stopping the bloodshed in Ukraine, and if I think it was Russia's fault, which it might not be, but if I think it was Russia's fault, I'm going to put secondary tariffs on oil, on all oil coming out of Russia. That would be if you buy oil from Russia, you can't do business in the United States. There will be he said, a 25 to 50 point tariff on all oil. Trump also has been critical of Zelensky, saying he was sick of his handling of the war. Also, that minerals deal between still rocky, that minerals deal between the U.S. and Ukraine. So there are a number of challenges on that front. Other news trending this morning, actor Richard Chamberlain, who was known for a number of things, Dr. Kildare. He also was in the miniseries Shogun, The Thornbirds. Richard Chamberlain has died. He was 90 years old. He died Saturday night. Complications following a stroke. And here's he was 2 days shy of his 91st birthday. His 91st birthday would have been today. And Richard Chamberlain has passed away. His longtime partner said, our beloved Richard is with the angels now. He's free and soaring to those loved ones before us. How blessed we were to have known such an amazing, loving soul. Love never dies, and our love is under his wings, lifting him to his next great adventure. He just had an incredible career, and the number of different I think Petula back in 1968. He was in a trio of Three Musketeers film. He played Alan Quatermain in King Solomon's Mines. And that was in 1985 and 86. He played Alan Quatermain in The Lost City of Gold. So, I mean, just a flurry of films. So Richard Chamberlain has died. Also, while we're talking about movies, A Working Man took the box office crown over the weekend. Disney's Snow White sunk 66% in its second weekend. So in other words, it's dropping like a rock. Snow White. Also, Morgan Wallen was on Saturday Night Live over the weekend, and he abruptly left the stage at the conclusion of the program, walked off the stage, and this is, now it wouldn't be a big story to me, but it is trending this morning. So he left the stage early, and Fox News is saying there was nothing wrong. It was one of those oops moments. And so an insider said, you know, that was the way he entered and exited the studio all week during rehearsal and camera blocking. So we just walked that way at the conclusion of the program, and he should not have. He wound up leaving, it seemed, abruptly, and there's nothing wrong. And then Waylon wrote that he was excited to return home. Get me to God's country, he said on Instagram. Also, there's a story about the new torpedo bats in Major League Baseball. These are the talk of baseball, says MLB. Major League Baseball has confirmed that these torpedo bats are legal. If you're wondering what a torpedo bat is, if you don't follow baseball closely like me, I don't follow closely. So the barrel of the bat is kind of untraditional, and the barrel rests closer to the hitter's hands. Torpedo bats are designed with more wood, and so they have more mass concentrated in the area of the bat where the hitter is more likely to hit the ball. And not everybody is using them, but Aaron Judge, who blasted 4 home runs this weekend, still using a traditional bat, but the torpedo bats are being used by a number of others. And it certainly seems to be a factor in the fact that the Yankees are off to an incredible start this year. It seems like some of that may be due to the torpedo bat. Also, California Governor Gavin Newsom, taking a swing at his own party on Friday, said the Democrats have become too toxic and judgmental. He was on Real Time with Bill Maher, and he was asked about other Democrats' criticism of the party and those who have questioned questioned Newsom for bringing Republican guests on his new podcast. And the governor is saying the Democratic brand is toxic right now. He said, we talk down to people. We talk past people. And he said, and I think with this podcast and having the opportunity to dialogue with people I disagree with, it's an opportunity to try to find common ground and not take cheap shots. I'm not looking to put a spoke in the wheel of their, or a crowbar in the spokes of their wheel to trip them up. So this was a conversation he had with Bill Maher on Real Time over the weekend. More than 3/4 of scientists in the United States saying they're considering leaving the country. They're looking at Europe and Canada as their top relocation spots. This was a survey released last week. The journal Nature found that 75.3% of scientists are considering leaving the U.S. after the administration cut funding for research. Nearly 1/4 of respondents, 24.7%, disagreed. So you got 3/4 of researchers saying they're going to leave the country. And I don't want to get too much into that. And seriously, that's just overreaction in my opinion. 75%. We're going to leave the country. Wait a minute. Why don't you sit tight? Let's see how this kind of shakes out, huh? Rather than saying I'm immediately going to leave the country. Really? Really? I mean, overreact much? That's kind of my, as I look at that. Also, there is a story about a single engine plane that crashed in a residential area of Brooklyn Park, Minnesota over the weekend. This plane had taken off from Des Moines International Airport, was headed to an airport north of Minneapolis, and sadly, there were no survivors of the crash. The number of passengers was unknown. And sadly, no one survived, police said over the weekend. Likely we'll be learning more details today. Elon Musk's AI company, XAI, has acquired his social media platform, X. It's an all-stock deal valuing XAI at $80 billion and X at $33 billion after accounting for $12 billion in debt. So Elon Musk announced the merger would combine XAI's advanced AI capabilities with X's extensive reach. And he believes it will deliver smarter, more meaningful experiences. XAI was launched in July 2023 and released their AI interface, Grok, later that year. Also, trending this morning, the FDA's top vaccine official, who played a big role in Operation Warp Speed, has reportedly been pushed out of the agency. This is from the Daily Mail. Dr. Peter Marks submitted his resignation letter on Friday after he was informed that if he didn't resign, he'd be fired. And of course, he reacted in his resignation letter with harsh words of the Trump administration. Also, Columbia University's interim president, Katrina Armstrong, stepping down. She announced this. That decision came 1 week after the university implemented changes because they wanted to reinstate that $400 million in federal funding that had been lost over concerns about anti-Semitism. So she is now resigned. Then you had people at Columbia University, over the weekend, graduates tearing up their diplomas, trying to get a lot of attention. Controversial flag bill has passed in Utah, prohibits unauthorized flags on government property, in particular the LGBTQ flags, so on, pride flags, that kind of thing. Pride flags and others, Confederate flags, Nazi flags, not being able to be used. Also, yesterday, U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth unveiled the plan to enhance the U.S. military command in Japan, taking steps potentially then to strengthen Japan so they could potentially then stand up to China. Also, this is pretty wild. There is a reconstruction of a two-clawed hand of a newly discovered dinosaur species. You seen this? It's got two-fingered claws, this thing, pretty wild. Also, there had been a 28-year-old woman who was missing after she and her dog fell into the Carbon River in Washington State, and they have been recovered, police said, unfortunately. So her body was found in the river by a civilian flying a drone in the area. And that's a look at the stories trending this morning in Belf's News Gallery. Thanks for starting your day with us. It's 6:57. Got a few clouds, 31 this hour of the Greg Belfrage Show, brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month. Well, thanks so much for being with us. Hope you'll come back at 9:30 for the 4th hour. So don't be absent. I'll see you then. Thanks so much for being here.
The musical ambassadors of the Army, the United States Army Field Band, and